All right, here's as the Pak PR lobby continues to wage on Dr. Ajish C. Agarwala, the man who's hit back at Hamid Ansari and Jairam Ramesh on Nusrat Mirza, a columnist and anchor. The Pakistan journalist came is now joining us live. I think we've got Dr. Agarwala joining us live. Now, Dr. Agarwala, to begin with, you have, of course, hit back at Hamid Ansari and Jairam Ramesh over remarks that were made. Now, tell us more.
Accepted our request to be the chief guest in our international conference of jurists on international terrorism and human rights, which was scheduled for 11th and 12th of December 2010. After his acceptance, Mr. Ashok Diwan, who was Director in Vice President Secretariat, he requested me to invite Mr. Nusrat Mirza ji of Pakistan to attend this conference. When he made this request, I have not uttered anything, but I kept in mind, but actually I have not invited him because we think that Pakistan promote this terrorism, and when we have not invited even the judges and the lawyers from Pakistan. So on the eve of the conference, means on 10th of December, Mr. Ashok Diwan telephones me telling me that Honorable Vice President will be in our program only for 20 minutes as he is annoyed that we have not invited.
Mr. Agarwala, I think that's a poor audio connection. You were talking us through the fact that you said that Dr. Ansari was annoyed that this particular journalist would be in the conference for only 10 minutes. So can you please tell us what happened thereafter? All right, we seem to have lost that audio connection with Dr. Ajish C. Agarwala. Now, what we understand is, and here's what he said. This is what Dr. Agarwala said. He said that there was a conference for which invitations were extended, and one of the invitations was supposed to go out to Nusrat Mirza. Now, he's the columnist and the anchor who's been in the dock over this. I think we've got Mr. Agarwala back with us. Mr. Agarwala, you were talking us through the events that as they unfolded, and you know, we lost that audio connection at the point where you said that Dr. Ansari was upset that Nusrat Mirza was not being invited. Tell us from there on what happened.
So then he told Honorable Vice President will remain only for 20 minutes, not for 1 hour, as he is annoyed that we have not invited Mr. Mirza. So I told him if he can't stay for 1 hour, kindly cancel his program. We withdraw our invitation, but he told that already his speech has been delivered, it is ready, and it has been given to media, and all his movement program for tomorrow program is there. Now we can't cancel. So, but he will remain only for 20 minutes. He came for 20 minutes. We welcomed him as he was our vice president, and he left after 20 minutes. But now on social media, my name was dragged that it was I that who has invited, it is our organization who has invited Mr. Mirza, which was factually wrong. It was also projected that I, being the co-author of the book of Honorable Prime Minister with British author and American author, so it was I who created problem for India, not the Honorable Vice President. I fully agree, Vice President is not officially inviting any person, as what he tried to obtain the invitation from us. He must have also asked the other organization, which is the Jama Masjid United Forum, which they held a conference of international conference against terrorism on 27th of October 2009. Mr. Nusrat Mirza is referring to that conference because in that Honorable Vice President was also there, and he was also there.
So what I wanted to understand from you, Mr. Agarwala, is that who actually invited Nusrat Mirza? You say it wasn't you. The Vice President says that it wasn't him because it wasn't procedure. So who invited him?
We have not invited, but other organization which is run by the son of a Jama Masjid Sahi Imam, and in which Mr. Kapil Sibal is also their supporter, because Mr. Kapil Sibal and the president, son of the Jama Masjid Sahi Imam, they held a press conference on 21st of October 2009, about 7 days before the holding of that conference, that they are holding that international conference to emphasize the right understanding of Islam amongst the general public. So that was the purpose of that conference organized in this Oberoi Hotel in Delhi by Jama Masjid United Forum. So they must have, the organizer of that, yani ke Sai Imam son or Mr. Kapil Sibal, or unofficially our Honorable Vice President, as he must have told about our invitation, but ultimately we have not given. So likewise, he must have told them, organizer, and told Mr. Nusrat Mirza also that I am inviting you, you have to come to India.
So what you are saying, Mr. Agarwala, is that you believe that it was the Jama Masjid United Front. You've also named Mr. Kapil Sibal over there. You say that he was perhaps one of the persons who invited him. But
No. Invite officially has to be from the organizer. But I don't feel, although in press conference, Mr. Kapil Sibal was also there, his name is referred in that press conference. But actually, I have not found his photo in the actual conference which held in Oberoi Hotel.
Okay. Now, who is Mr. Ashok Diwan? You mentioned that in your tweet as well. Yeah. Can you give us more clarification?
Yeah, he is an officer. He is an employee officer of the Vice President Secretariat. At that time, he was director of Vice President Secretariat. Today, also he is working in the Vice President with the present Vice President as OSD to Honorable Vice President of India. And he was, now he is a OSD. That time he was director in Vice President Secretariat.
So are you then saying that he was aware of the invitations that were sent out?
Because when they requested, it is the general presumption that the organizer will invite. But they were not aware. I am a seasoned lawyer. I have been invited in functions, and we have organized functions in different parts of the world. We know what is to be done, what is not to be done. We have to care for, we have not invited the Chief Justice and judges of Supreme Court of Pakistan and the lawyers, the Bar Council. They have so much high regard for me. They held so many functions, felicitation in Pakistan for me. But I am not invited, because here we think that inviting Pakistanis for a conference against terrorism, it will be not proper. There would have been any land order problem also. Because when the Pakistani speakers say we are not propagating, we are not helping our people, and people from other countries, they allege, no, you are doing. I don't want that such ugly situation develop. I am not invited, but he felt, Honorable Vice President felt it.
Right, so what you are saying is that you did not invite him. However, are you then alleging that there was pressure for him to be invited to this event? Is that what you're saying? Can you clarify for us, please?
Yes, that is correct. And not only pressure. When we have not invited, the time for 1 hour presence of the Honorable Vice President was curtailed to 20 minutes. And when I told cancel it, we don't invite him. No, he has to come. And ultimately he came and stayed only for 20 minutes. And always, you see the record, there is any conference, whether it is president, prime minister, or vice president, always a program is for 1 hour. What is the reason? What other assignment honorable vice president got immediately? There was not such emergency that something happened and honorable vice president to visit something. And those things also is done by honorable president, prime minister. Prime president and the vice president, they are the presentable, they have to perform certain duties as a matter of protocol and all these things. It was that what other assignment he was compelled on the eve of this, there is no answer. You will ask the secretariat, Mr. Ashok Diwan is still working.
So I wanted to clarify one point from you, that if he was not invited to the conference, how did he come there? You're also in the same breath saying that there was pressure that was applied on the fact that he was not invited officially for that event. So are you then saying that he ended up at that event unofficially invited?
No, no, no. In our conference, neither we invited nor he attended, officially or unofficially. It is what Mr. Nusrat Mirza is alleging, is saying he attended a conference of, not of jurists, he is saying attending a conference on terrorism, which was organized or invited by Vice President of India. That was, he was referring to other conference, as I told, which held on 27th of October 2009, organized by Jama Masjid United Forum in Oberoi Hotel. And I have sent you the photo where Honorable Vice President is sharing the dais with Nusrat Mirza. And one thing more I am telling you. We can't put, when President, Vice President, Honorable Prime Minister is guest on the dais, we can't put anybody on dais. We are supposed to send a list of the proposed important personalities whom we want to be on dais. Then the secretariat of that chief guest, they approve it. They show it to the concerned VVIP, and once that VVIP approves, then protocol-wise sitting arrangements are being made, and the organizer are being informed, the security people are being informed that this will be the sitting arrangement. Here, the Honorable Vice President, as it has come in media, that he says he don't know, he was not aware. That was factually wrong, as this is the protocol. It means he was, when he was on dais, this Mr. Nusrat Mirza, it means that was with the approval at least of the Honorable Vice President.
So what you are saying essentially is that it is impossible that the Vice President who was presiding at a particular function was not aware of the fact that Mr. Nusrat Mirza was invited for that event. Is that what you are saying?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, you're also talking about a particular other conference where Nusrat Mirza was not extended an invitation for. And thereafter, you say that the Vice President at that time, Mr. Hamid Ansari, was extremely upset that he had not been invited. Can you detail that aspect also for us?
Yeah, that the other conference, I, being the President of International Council of Jurists, being the Chairman of All India Bar Association and convener of Indian Council of Jurists, which was organizing this other conference on 10th, on 11th and 12th of December in Delhi, 2010. I was the in charge. I was dealing with. So when, in spite of the request made through Mr. Ashok Diwan, director at that time, I have not invited. So Honorable Vice President felt bad when he came to know that tomorrow he is not coming. So then he understood that we have not, because the Nusrat Mirza must have told I have not been invited. So I am not here in Delhi. I am presuming this thing. I am not saying, because I was not a witness to that. But what Mr. Ashok Diwan, the then director, today OSD to Honorable Vice President, has communicated that when, as we have not invited him, so that's why the Vice President is unhappy and he will stay in your only for 20 minutes instead of 1 hour.
So basically what you're saying then is that this Mr. Diwan, who was the OST at that point in time, communicated to you that Mr. Hamid Ansari was in touch. Obviously he was in touch to a certain extent if he was talking to him and he was communicating to you that Mr. Ansari was extremely upset that this particular journalist from Pakistan had not been invited and so on and so forth. So in your assessment, do you think that the two knew each other well?
In my assessment?
Yes.
What?
I'm asking you that you say that Mr. Diwan came back to you and said that Dr. Hamid Ansari was extremely upset when this journalist was not invited to your event. He communicated to you. So in your assessment, do you believe that the two of them were talking, that's Dr. Ansari as well as the Pakistani journalist, were in constant touch?
Naturally, but in contact does not mean personally meeting.
All right. Okay, we seem to have lost that audio connection with him again. We're going to try and fix that line and go back to him in just a bit. But here's what he said so far. He says that he does not know who invited this particular journalist to this event, but he also then goes on to say that as a host of several of these such events, he knows that without the go-ahead from the chief guest of this event, no invites are sent out. So that's what he's saying. He also says that at another event where Dr. Hamid Ansari was presiding, the Bar Association did not call this journalist Nusrat Mirza, and thereafter the OST of the Vice President or the communications officer at that point in time, Mr. Diwan, communicated very clearly to Mr. Agarwala that the Vice President would curtail being at the event for about 20 minutes because this aforesaid Pakistani journalist was not present. Those are reactions that we are getting from one of the organizers. We are going to try and get him back in just a bit, but those are reactions that we are getting right now. Of course, there are a lot of things that he said in this chat we have been having with him. Key among them, of course, is that Mr. Nusrat Mirza, if he was invited to an event, would have been done so with the chief guest's permission. And hence he says that the approval of the Vice President would have been required for that. He also says that on stage, the way people are seated is always with the consent of the dignitary who is the chief guest. So also going on then to say that Mr. Ashok Diwan said that the Vice President was extremely unhappy that Mirza was not invited to this particular conference. He said that he would wait for only 20 minutes and not attend the event for 1 hour. Now, this is another event, that's what he's saying at least, saying that so essentially this particular event that he talks about is the 27th of October in 2009 is the conference that he attended that was organized by the Bar Association, where this said Pakistan journalist was not invited, but he was apparently on the initial list perhaps that was vetted. We are going to try and get Mr. Adish Agarwala again in just a bit. He was joining us and he was detailing for us what had happened earlier. Now, he goes on to say that there was an event on anti-terrorism that was organized where Dr. Hamid Ansari, who was the then Vice President of the country, was the chief guest. Now, in the list that was given to Dr. Hamid Ansari, Nusrat was also mentioned. He's the Pakistani journalist who's caused a flutter by statements that he has made in the Pakistani media. Now, he says that this organizer was communicated by Mr. Diwan that the Vice President was extremely upset that Nusrat Mirza had not been invited for this particular conference. And he says that thereafter, because he was not invited, the Vice President decided not to first come for the event, and then he did come. However, he curtailed it. Let's listen into what he told us.
Accepted our request to be the chief guest in our international conference of jurists on international terrorism and human rights, which was scheduled for 11th and 12th of December 2010. After his acceptance, Mr. Ashok Diwan, who was director in Vice President Secretariat, he requested me to invite Mr. Nusrat Mirza ji of Pakistan to attend this conference. When he made this request, I have not uttered anything, but I kept in mind. But actually, I have not invited him because we think that Pakistan promote this terrorism, and when we have not invited even the judges and the lawyers from Pakistan. So on the eve of the conference, means on 10th of December, Mr. Ashok Diwan telephones me telling me that Honorable Vice President will be in our program only for 20 minutes as he is annoyed that we have not invited.
Mr. Agarwala, I think that's a poor audio connection. You were talking us through the fact that you said that Dr. Ansari was annoyed that this particular journalist would be in the conference for only 10 minutes. So can you please tell us what happened thereafter? All right, we seem to have lost that audio connection with Dr. Adishsi Agarwala. Now, what we understand is, and here's what he said. This is what Dr. Agarwala said. He said that there was a conference for which invitations were extended, and one of the invitations was supposed to go out to Nusrat Mirza. Now, he's the columnist and the anchor who's been in the dock over this. I think we've got Mr. Agarwala back with us. Mr. Agarwala, you were talking us through the events that as they unfolded, and you know, we lost that audio connection at the point where you said that Dr. Ansari was upset that Nusrat Mirza was not being invited. Tell us from there on what happened.
So then he told Honorable Vice President will remain only for 20 minutes, not for 1 hour, as he is annoyed that we have not invited Mr. Mirza. So I told him if he can't stay for 1 hour, kindly cancel his program. We withdraw our invitation. But he told that already his speech has been delivered, it is ready, and it has been given to media, and all his movement program for tomorrow program is there. Now we can't cancel. So, but he will remain only for 20 minutes. He came for 20 minutes. We welcomed him as he was our vice president, and he left after 20 minutes. But now on social media, my name was dragged that it was I that who has invited, it is our organization who has invited Mr. Mirza, which was factually wrong. It was also projected that I, being the co-author of the book of Honorable Prime Minister with British author and American author, so it was I who created problem for India, not the Honorable Vice President. I fully agree. Vice President is not officially inviting any person, as what he tried to obtain the invitation from us. He must have also asked the other organization, which is the Jama Masjid United Forum, which they held a conference of international conference against terrorism on 27th of October 2009. Mr. Nusrat Mirza is referring to that conference because in that, Honorable Vice President was also there and he was also there.
So what I wanted to understand from you, Mr. Agarwala, is that who actually invited Nusrat Mirza? You say it wasn't you. The Vice President says that it wasn't him because it wasn't procedure. So who invited him?
We have not invited, but other organization which is run by the son of Jama Masjid Sahih Imam, and in which Mr. Kapil Sibal is also their supporter, because Mr. Kapil Sibal and the president, son of the Jama Masjid Sahih Imam, they held a press conference on 21st of October 2009, about 7 days before the holding of that conference, that they are holding that international conference to emphasize the right understanding of Islam amongst the general public. So that was the purpose of that conference organized in this Oberoi Hotel in Delhi by Jama Masjid United Forum. So they must have, the organizer of that, yani ke Sai Imam son or Mr. Kapil Sibal, or unofficially our Honorable Vice President, as he must have told about our invitation, but ultimately we have
Yes.
not given. So likewise, he must have told them, organizer, and told Mr. Nusrat Mirza also that I am inviting you, you have to come to India.
So what you are saying, Mr. Agarwala, is that you believe that it was the Jama Masjid United Front. You've also named Mr. Kapil Sibal over there. You say that he was perhaps one of the persons who invited him. But
No. Invite officially has to be from the organizer. But I don't feel, although in press conference, Mr. Kapil Sibal was also there, his name is referred in that press conference. But actually, I have not found his photo in the actual conference which held in Oberoi Hotel.
Okay. Now, who is Mr. Ashok Diwan? You mentioned that in your tweet as well.
Yeah.
Can you give us more clarification?
Yeah, he is an officer. He is an employee officer of the Vice President Secretariat. At that time, he was Director of Vice President Secretariat. Today, also he is working in the Vice President with the present Vice President as OSD to Honorable Vice President of India. And he was, now he is a OSD. That time he was Director in Vice President Secretariat.
So are you then saying that he was aware of the invitations that were sent out?
Because when they requested, it is the general presumption that the organizer will invite. But they were not aware. I'm a seasoned lawyer. I have been invited in functions, and we have organized functions in different parts of the world. We know what is to be done, what is not to be done. We have to care for, we have not invited the Chief Justice and judges of Supreme Court of Pakistan and the lawyers, the Bar Council. They have so much high regard for me. They held so many functions, felicitation in Pakistan for me. But I'm not invited, because here we think that inviting Pakistanis
Well, huge allegations there being made on Ansari by the organizer who just spoke to us, Dr. Agarwal, where he made a couple of points that Ansari was extremely angry when the ISI person, the man, was not invited. And he, in fact, wanted to invite him, Ansari wanted to invite him, but he did not cave in. So there's some big allegations being made there. Okay, Dr. Agarwal is joining us back. Thank you for joining us. You have revealed it all pretty much in this conversation you had with my colleague earlier, and you're back with us. Thank you for joining us back. Some other questions we have is that you did not entertain the invite request. So was there any pressure from Mr. Ansari to get him invited into your event?
No, there was no pressure. It was suggested initially through Mr. Ashok Diwan, but because you see, normally if some president, prime minister, vice president, they say something, this is actually treated as an order. But we have to think from so many angles. So we have not invited, and he feels that I must have invited. But when on the eve he came to know, he must have come to know that he is not in India, then he must have got information that no invite was sent to him. So then this Honorable Vice President felt it bad, and then he decided to remain only for 20 minutes and got it communicated through Mr. Ashok Diwan.
All right, Mr. Agarwala, this is Nupur back here. Now, Mr. Agarwala, earlier when you were speaking to us, you were telling us about the fact that at your particular event, he was not invited. But thereafter, there was another event at which he was invited. And you say that the organizers obviously had to seek the approval of the chief guest for that event for them to be invited. Now, what I wanted to understand...
No, not for inviting. No approval is required for normal attendee from the chief guest. Only what I told that to put somebody on dais. When the sitting arrangement of the dais is to be finalized, that time the organizers submit that particulars that whom we want to put on dais. We have to send this information and seek their clearance when it is a matter of president, vice president, or prime minister. Then secretariat of that VVIP approves after approves or disapproves or make amendment and by having the consent of the VVIP. So what I told, when this photo which we have released, it means when the Pakistani journalist is sitting on the dais with the Honorable Vice President, it means the Secretariat of the Vice President must have placed it before Honorable Vice President, and Honorable Vice President must have approved his sitting on the dais.
Okay, so just to clarify, you are saying that if the Honorable Vice President had someone sitting on the dais next to him, it had to have been approved by the Vice President's office. So the pictures that you have released, seem to suggest that they were both sitting on the dais. So it could in no way not have been approved by the Vice President's office. Is that what you are saying?
Yes, correct. And not only next to him, anybody on the dais.
All right. Now, you have detailed to us that there was one event which Mr. Hamid Ansari was presiding over, which was organized by you. At that event, Mr. Hamid Ansari, according to you and according to what was communicated to you, was extremely upset that this particular journalist was not invited. Thereafter, at another event, you see this journalist is sitting next on the dais with other speakers as well, with Mr. Ansari. Do you think that in the interim period, Mr. Hamid Ansari perhaps being upset about him not being invited led to some sort of pressure on other organizations to have this journalist attend events?
Madam, there is a confusion. That other conference in which Mr. Pakistan journalist has attended, that was on 27th of October 2009. That was about 13 months before our conference. It is not that immediately that other program was there. What is the purpose of inviting in different programs is to get an opportunity to visit India in different quarters. So if I am inviting, if I would have invited very next day of that other conference, then there is no very purpose. The purpose is to visit different parts of the country.
Absolutely. So just so that I get this clear, that in a particular conference, this journalist that you've released pictures of attended before your conference was held.
Yes.
But in your conference also, there was some amount of pressure exerted that this particular journalist be invited. Is that what you are saying? So in that sense, in those 13 months, there must have been some sort of go back and forth between these two?
I can't tell exactly whether in between they physically met or not. Today, if something is to be communicated to Honorable Prime Minister, I am not supposed to personally meet. If something is to be communicated to Honorable President, Honorable Vice President, we communicate through some other acquaintance who is known to each other.
All right. You were earlier, of course, giving us more details as to your conference where you refused to invite him because of various reasons that you as organizers knew best. But thereafter, the Vice President decided to curtail your event to about just 20 minutes. And you were told that he was upset about this particular individual, the Pakistani journalist, not being there.
Yes, correct.
Can you detail that for us?
You see, when on the eve, means on 10th of December 2010, I received a call from Mr. Ashok Diwan, the then director in Vice President Secretariat, informing me that Mr. Agarwala, tomorrow Honorable Vice President will be staying in your program only for 20 minutes, as he is very much annoyed that you have not accepted our request, his request of inviting Pak journalists Nusrat Mirza. So I told that was not possible, and if Honorable President is annoyed, then let you cancel this his visit, his attendance in our program, because within 20 minutes we can't finish the entire 1 hour program details. We have sent minute to minute program. We can't curtail, and it is not appropriate that during the continuance of the inaugural function, Honorable Vice President leaves in midst of the program. So better is that he should not come. But he says no, he will certainly come, because his speech is ready, it has been circulated, his movement is already informed, press is informed. At this moment, curtailing without any exceptional ground will be not appropriate. But that was not a ground. They can't tell this due to this, or I have cancelled, or because the Honorable Vice President was annoyed and wanted to stay only for 20 minutes and remaining 40 minutes he will be taking rest. They can't tell. So, but he came, he remained for 20 minutes. We are duty bound. He was our Vice President. Today we are coming to know of this background, that he was invited as cited by Mr. Mirza. So, and he was getting information and circulating and delivering those information to ISI.
Right now,
that time we were not aware. I was not knowing the purpose also. Today that thing is coming. Because what happens, as Mirza has told, that Kasuri, the leader of Pakistan, he was getting him visas, special treatment. What I'm thinking, that Kasuri through diplomats or some common friend getting, telling the Honorable Vice President, and then intimation office to our Ministry of External Affairs, and because Home Ministry is also involved in getting the visa for Pakistan, for Pakistanis. Our Home Ministry is also giving the clearance, and they decide of which cities a person should be allowed. Actually, when a person is coming to attend a conference, he should be given in a visa only for that city. We have been to Pakistan.
Yes.
When we are having different programs in different cities, then only the government of Pakistan is giving us a visa for those different cities. If we have no official work, they are not giving to us.
all right. Mr. Agarwala, I wanted to come back to the point where you say that Mr. Diwan got back to you and said that the Vice President is upset. Now, did he tell you what is it exactly that upset the Vice President Hamid Ansari at the time about the conference?
Because we have not actually invited the Pak journalist.
And did he elaborate on how Mr. Ansari reacted when he was told that this Pakistani journalist was not going to be at the press at that event?
No, he has not. He can't react to us. There was no opportunity, and naturally, they will not tell to us reaction. Nobody can react to the organizer of such a big event. In normal course, he came but stayed only for 20 minutes. And when it was, because the drama can't be created in such international events. So we also not told, no, you have to stay in political functions. Organizer request the chief, please stay more, please take food, please 10 minutes more. That we can't do.
Right, but on the sidelines of this event, did you notice, how the Vice President was upset? You, of course, did say that he only stayed for about 20 minutes and then left. But did you get the feeling that, he was perhaps still upset?
Madam, our Honorable Vice President has been a diplomat. We are also working as a diplomat when we are holding such position, dealing with different countries, bar leaders, judges, or politicians. We are very much, we say, diplomatic. We can't express anything, but that was already expressed through his, and that was acted upon. Instead of 1 hour, you stay only for 20 minutes, what it means. That is more than a reaction.
All right. So, I wanted to also go back to the part where you say that it is impossible for someone to be seated on a dais, and you are speaking from your experience as an organizer, that if someone is seated next to a dignitary on a dais, it is impossible that, Mr. Dr. Ansari did not know of this other conference, obviously the other event to which this journalist was invited, that he was going to be on the dais. So his, refuting the allegations that have been laid at his doorstep, to you as an organizer, does that make sense?
Yeah, correct. Because I am in my functions in India, all prime ministers from Rajiv Gandhi to Mr. Dr. Manmohan Singh, all presidents, vice presidents, they have attended our conference. This is the journal. We know the system. We fulfill all those obligations because we never do anything which may be not permitted. We obtain the permissions when it is international conference. In every international conference, we are supposed to seek clearance from before inviting actually the chief guest, because we take decisions 6 months, 5 months, 1 year in advance of holding such conference. So we write to Ministry of External Affairs, we write to, because we are jurists, we write to the Secretary of the Ministry of Law and Justice, we write to Home Ministry to grant us clearance. Once we obtain the clearance, this is to be actually, if we write to the chief guest, once he agrees or before agreeing, the secretariat asks us to provide us NOCs of the concerned ministries. We provide that. On the basis of that, the president or vice president or prime minister, they take decision, not only on the basis of these clearances or obtained by the organizer. And rightly the vice president has stated that whatever he is doing, he is attending conference with the concurrence of the government. So president, vice president, they obtain clearance of the concerned ministry. When it is international, the Ministry of External Affairs and Home Ministry. He also, they obtain कि भाई इसमें कोई, there is nothing wrong in attending that. Once they say कि yes, there is nothing wrong, then he may decide to attend or not to attend. That is his decision. But without that, they don't, because if some terrorist is there, if some anti-India element is there, he is just sharing, then situation will become very awkward.
All right,
So
now,
to avoid all that, this is the procedure being adopted.
Now, Mr. Agarwala, I wanted to understand, did you ever try to contact the vice president, or did you, try to find out and follow up and clarify your position as to why this particular journalist was not invited to your event? Was there any follow-up after the event was concluded?
No. We are too much busy. A vice president or prime minister, all are very busy. So we never, if somebody is not accepting our request, like sometimes we request president, and if that date is not convenient, or he is otherwise not agreeing, we never try to ask why you are not agreeing. We never follow, or we are not such beggars, or we are getting such benefit. Once the vice president is the prime minister, is something else. Prime minister can patronize or anything can be done. People run to seek his blessings. But people like us will never, if he is not interested, I told Mr. Diwan to cancel his visit. What I would have got, but my people, because when other judges are there, there was not like that. Our status would have been so high when all prime ministers, presidents have attended.
Right now, also, Mr. Agarwala, you were telling us that obviously there were clearances involved at various ministry levels, when this other invitation was extended. So you yourself said that, usually in events like this one where a Pakistani journalist is attending, there are multiple levels of clearances required. So in that particular event, of which the pictures you've shared, all these clearances would have been in place?
I doubt. Because when if Jani ji was very close to us, to me, Jani Jail Singh ji, that time no formalities. So likewise, when this is being organized by Muslim and Mr. Kapil Sibal is associated, so I doubt that they have initially, we were not aware, factually telling you, when we held first international conference in India, earlier we were holding national conference. We were not supposed to seek any clearance. Only the chief guest used to get the clearance from IB, etc. But we were not aware. We are intellectual, we are jurists. But when we came to know, we obtained. So these are not so highly qualified people. When we can commit mistake if when not knowing the law, so they may have not. 99% I feel today they have not got this permission, and nor the honorable vice president got the clearance from the concerned ministries, because if they would have got, and if the vice president got the taken the concurrence or clearance from the concerned ministries, then he would have not lied that a Pakistani journalist was invited in our conference. He has not referred to that other conference because that was totally illegal. If he mentions that, then everything would have been inquired into, whether they were having the clearance, whether the honorable vice president got the clearance from Ministry of External and Home. So to avoid that situation, he mentioned, and while Mr. Mirza has not stated that he attended the international conference of jurists, he said he attended the international conference on terrorism. That was the only conference which he attended, and Honorable Vice President stated that he don't know Mr. Mirza. And I have proved it that he was aware when he was sharing, at least sharing the dice with a Vice President.
All right. Dr. Agarwala, thank you for joining us on Republic TV. But please stay on with us. Republic Bharat is just going to be joining you shortly for speaking to them. Do stay on with us. I think Republic Bharat is already patched on.
Yeah. Oh, okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.